Hi, my name is Phlunte Riddle, and I'm a candidate for State Senate, District 25. Senator Carol Lewis terming out in November. I was actually born in Brooklyn, New York, and my mother moved myself and my two sisters to California when I was 3 years old, and I've lived in Pasadena since I was in 3rd grade, and so I'm a Pasadena resident, so I've pretty much bounced between Pasadena and Pasadena the majority of my life. I attended Loma Alta Elementary, McKinley for the first year, and then they ended busing, and so I went to school at Elliott Middle School for 8th grade, and then I'm a graduate of John Muir High School, and of course, like many kids during that time that didn't go to a 4-year college, I went to PCC. Well, I was married to my husband, Eddie Riddle, who was a native Pasadenian, and so he and I married in 1978, and we have been married 37 years, and we have 3 adult sons. Well, it's interesting. When I was in 10th grade, an Officer Walter Brush, did a career day at John Muir, and he said that the police department wanted people from the community. They were looking for women, minorities, and he gave the 1, 2, 3, 4 that you had to ensure that you didn't get in trouble, kept your credit, don't do fast driving, and it sparked an interest. And so fast forward, I married Eddie Riddle, and his father was Ralph Riddle. He's now deceased, and Ralph was a police officer here in Pasadena, and so from 1946 to 1974, the first Negro policeman. And so I had numerous conversations with Ralph about that, and in 1984 I became a Pasadena police officer. It's interesting. There was an assumption made by me that if I went through the academy, proved myself, went through the same training that the male officers did, that I would immediately be accepted. But it was a time, it was a period. And so when I came on, I had a very difficult time with the transition because a lot of people inside the organization and outside weren't ready for women and had not seen very many black women. I think there was only 2 on the police force at that time. And so I would go to calls and people would say, "I want a real policeman," or be inside in the organization, and they would go, "You're going to get someone hurt, you're taking a man's job." So I went through that difficult transition period of women and women of color being accepted in the organization, but it makes you stronger. So I started literally on patrol. I worked footbeat, I worked undercover during the tough times of rock cocaine on these streets, and so literally I worked every hard job there was, and when I made detectives, it was very, it was a move. I worked robbery, homicide. Women didn't work homicide as a position back then because I had children, and it was assumed that if I got a call out in the middle of the night, who would take care of my children? Well, same way men get called out, their spouse takes care of the children. But like I said before, it was a period in time, and so I've always felt, I'm very pleased now that when women work homicide, but there's a woman, Lieutenant Teresa Rojas, who's over the entire detectives division, so it's pretty cool. I was promoted as the first African-American woman to the rank of sergeant, and again you go back to patrol and work your way up, and then the first African-American woman to be promoted to the rank of lieutenant in the history of the organization, and I held that high position for many years until we had other women that were promoted into that rank. But it's been a transition and change agent, most definitely working on policies to ensure that people were treated fairly, but we were contemporary, making sure that we had early warning signs, helping to ensure training was appropriate and ongoing for officers, but really being a community liaison, being a resource, breaking through red tape with City Hall and the court system to help people in our community to get a fair shake and to not be, laden with the cumbersomeness of what goes on in any city. Oh, absolutely. I would love, there was a time when, we had so many police persons here that lived in the Altadena or Pasadena area. Rick Law was from here. Calvin was from here. We look at, Rodney Wallace, Daryl Qualls, Percy Tucker, Jerry Faulkner, on, where we actually lived in these communities, and it really was a benefit. But I'll tell you, it's also very, very difficult to live in the city in which you work, even when you're doing things right. I'll give you one example is, I have 3 children, and one time I was out with my 2 youngest sons, and I was threatened by an individual who I had arrested, years earlier, a year earlier. And not only did he threaten me, but he threatened my children. And that's an ugly thing to have. I've had people that, walk by my house and said, oh, this is where you live, and it just makes it very uncomfortable. And so you have to look at it. Most people don't realize that the officers sometimes put their families at risk. We had to move from our home. Sorry, that's my clock. We had to move from our home once, and it was a financial and a personal burden. But I still think there's true value. Unfortunately, sometimes it's too expensive. Regardless of what people think officers make, they can't afford to live in some communities in which they work. I retired from the Pasadena Police Department in 2012 after 29 years, and I transitioned because I immediately became the interim executive director for the YWCA. I started my own small business. I provide leadership development and consulting for nonprofits, and I went back to school and obtained my doctoral degree in psychology, and I'm an adjunct professor in addition. So I shouldn't say I retired. I've just sort of moved into a different direction. So I never really thought this was my path, but as I started looking at what's important and what's going on in the California legislature, I said, early childhood education is not just something, a soundbite. It's about how we actually ensure that kids from K to 3rd get those foundational skills while they're little sponges, and the critical components that they learn in reading and comprehension and assessments, in order so that by the time they're middle school, that they can be successful moving through, because it's already been determined that if a child does not have those foundational skills by the time they're in 3rd grade, they will potentially fall through the cracks, which means firsthand for me that they end up in the justice system. I also looked at, mental health and homelessness. I've seen way too many people on the street, and it's unconscionable in this country that we have so many people that don't have services. So how can we ensure that not only do we restore services, but we have wraparound services to help people so that they can have a hand up? People go, we give too many people a hand out. Well, it's not a handout, it's a hand up. And looking at job creation, I look at job creation differently. Our infrastructure in some of the areas throughout this district are as old as the early 19th century. And when you look at infrastructure and replacing some of our lines or piping, you're looking at components of jobs. Somebody has to break that concrete. Someone's going to haul it away. Someone's literally going to stand out on the street with a sign that says stop and yell and you can go. So, then you're going to have your union jobs that are going to be your specialty skills that are going to come in and put that pipe in, and then someone's going to come back in and redo the concrete. Those are a multitude of jobs that can be community jobs with people with low skills and high skills with the union jobs. Looking at the goal line expansion, that's about 15 different jobs in laying that track. It's, we have to look at job creation as multiple layers, and how we can bring in not just union and specialty jobs, which are very important, but we can get people in the local communities back to work. Affordable housing, those issues all are critical to how people are able to climb back into the middle class. I look at the fact that safe communities, people go, it's a large district. It is, and I'll tell you the district in just a moment, but think about, if you will, how you worked, how I worked. My husband had a transitional job. He had vocational training from John Muir when he graduated, and was able to go right into Lockheed Martin Aircraft in Burbank and worked 25 years there providing for his family. I started with the Pasadena Police Department in '84 and for years was part of a union. We climbed our way into the middle class and were able to provide a good living for our children. People have a right, if they want to work hard, play by the rules, to be able to take care of themselves. But we have people working 2 and 3 jobs, and then they have people pointing a finger at them saying, you should be part of the PTA, you're not doing enough for your children, you should do this. You can't live like that. It's hard. And so that passion drives me. You know, I'm not a person that wants to do politics, but I want to be an individual who uses the political systems, the legislation, the allocation of funds to ensure that we help our communities to sustain their families, to help our seniors, to ensure that we're giving quality of life the best chance for people to succeed. So the path is Pasadena. If I use that as the starting point, is the largest voting block of the district. It's not the largest population, but it has the largest voting block. I'll move to the east from Pasadena, or north and south. Altadena, Pasadena, San Marino, South Pass, Sierra Madre. Then you'll go to Monrovia, Duarte, Bradbury, moving out to San Dimas, Laverne, Glendora, Claremont, and a portion of Upland. So it goes into San Bernardino County. Coming back along the 210 freeway from Pasadena, it would be La Cañada, La Crescenta, Montrose. Then you go into Glendale, 3/4 of Burbank, Atwater Village, Sunland, and parts of Griffith Park. So it's just under 1 million people. But as I said before, that regardless of where you live in this district or in the state of California or in the United States, people want jobs, they want to raise their children in safe communities and ensure that they have education so that their children can thrive. This is what binds us, regardless of, you know, our race, our age, our income bracket. You know, these are the things that bring us together. So these are some of the reasons that I think it's important that people come out. And, you know, unfortunately, we have very low voter turnout. There's an apathy. But I will share with you, we fought, African Americans, women, others, we fought so hard for the opportunity to vote, and yet now we're giving away our voice. We'll go out and stand on the corner with a picket sign, but that picket sign does not elect your mayor, your city council person, you know, your assembly member, your senator, your president of the United States. You have to vote. And so I'm asking people to register to vote. If you haven't, you have until May 23rd to go out and register to vote. You can get your voter registration right at the post office, or if you are registered, make sure you vote by June 7th. Love for you to do it by absentee ballot, but if you don't do that, June 7th is the actual voting day. Here's an interesting thing that people don't know. The primary election, which is June 7th, is the most important election, because that's the election that picks the top 2 vote getters to move to the general. So if you don't vote in the primary, and your candidate, me, may not make it to the general, and then I won't be available to help serve you. So you must come out. Let me also share with you that Senator Carol Liu, who is our current senator in terming out, has endorsed me. She's not only endorsed me, she's helping me to know more of the district. She's also voting for me, which is a critical component. Also, Assemblymember Chris Holden has endorsed me, and Congresswoman Judy Chu. Those are our representatives for this district, and I think it's very important that people realize that they have the faith in me to take my skills and transfer them to Sacramento to serve you. Also, I would share is that one of the areas that we're going to have to be very, very strategic is our presidential election. Pay attention to what's being said, but also do your research on the internet, because the media has gotten down to sound bites. They only give you and sway you with a soundbite statement, and they don't give you the full breadth and information of what you should know. So take a little bit of time, educate yourself, and don't be deceived on what people are telling you you're doing for them. Check their record.